Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Great Workforce Reboot AI Edition. My name is Vicki Thompson. I'm a Senior Director of Workforce Growth Partnerships at TPMA, and I'm delighted to serve as your moderator for today's webinar. It will be focused on artificial intelligence and its impact on higher education and workforce development. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for what promises to be an insightful and forward-thinking discussion. As we explore the opportunities, challenges, and considerations surrounding AI adoption, I encourage you to think about how these trends may influence your institution, workforce concerns, potential risks, and the transformative possibilities that AI brings to our classrooms, industries, and communities. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the session using the chat feature. We want this to be as interactive and relevant to your work as possible. I'll also regroup at the end to see if there are questions that we may have missed. So once again, thank you for being here, and let's get started. So first, we're going to start with the panelists providing their name, title, and organization, and they're going to talk a little bit about what it is they're doing in the AI space. So let's start with you, Ting.
Thank you, Vicky. Hi, everyone. My name is Ting Goody. I'm the president and CEO of TechPoint. We are a tech sector growth initiative based in Indianapolis as part of a Central Indiana corporate partnership, which is a long-time organization that's focused on driving economic prosperity for the Hoosier State. And we are seeing a lot in the AI space, and not surprisingly, tech as our tech sector growth initiative is putting a lot of focus around talent, innovation, entrepreneurship, and community building.
Thanks, Ting. Okay, Oliver, let's move it to you.
Thanks, Vicky. Hey, everyone. I'm Oliver Belanger. I'm the COO of Citizen AI. We are a new AI application that's hoping to launch in Indiana shortly, that is designed to help people find benefit programs, both in the government sector and in the nonprofit sector, that gets them the resources they need to have a positive transformation in their life. At the same time, we help programs find qualified people at a more affordable price. And I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Oliver. We're happy to have you. Rob?
Hi, and hello, everyone. I'm Rob Buchwald. I'm the CEO of Akron Innovations, and then our training division, the AI Catalyst Institute. The last time we've seen a workforce reboot at this scale, I believe, was the PC revolution, when AI is the first technology since then that demands a universal skills upgrade. And what my company does is we work with companies and economic development corporations to be at the front line of adopting AI, but whether that's from an AI engineering perspective or workforce training.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, Sarah.
Hi, Vicki, and hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Tracy. I am the Vice President of Workforce and Education here at TPMA, and we are really jumping in with both feet into the AI space, trying to make sure that we can help our clients to figure out how to effectively, efficiently, and ethically adopt AI practices in their workforce initiatives. So really glad to be here and to learn from some great experts on this panel.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the questions. Remember, if at any time you have a question, you can put it into the chat box. All right, Ting, the first question is for you. If we consider that AI is no longer emerging, but a transformative force that's reshaping work and skills, what does that transformation look like in your state or sector today? And then additionally, how are you keeping up with the pace of technology?
Thank you, Vicki. Such an excellent question. I like how you frame it as keeping up with the pace of technology. That's really the key. One of our panelists mentioned earlier, the last time the PC evolution, really the kind of benchmark. Since then has been at least 4 different tech adoption waves before the AI age that we're in today. With each adoption curve, essentially the speed doubles. So what does that mean? This PC era took about 20 years to hit mainstream. The internet era took about 12 years, and the last one we all experienced was a mobile era, took about 6 years. So if you do the math, double the speed, the AI era we're in today is likely to last about 3 to 5 years. And all of us know that ChatGPT, that really the tipping point was introduced in November 2022, so exactly 3 years ago. What does that mean for our sector? The news headlines around hiring. That's absolutely the tech sector is taking the brunt of it in terms of change in hiring practices. I'll give you an example. The big tech companies are now hiring 50, that's a 50% less college graduates compared to 5 years ago. So the pace of change ahead of a lot of different traditional sectors are really rapidly going. In Indiana specifically, our markets are responding and AI is no longer emerging, even though we're not necessarily the strong in terms of AI R&D. But we do have a lot of advantage in terms of applied AI, and it's actively reshaping the labor market, the education system, the way the employers thinking about talent and their talent needs. Employers demand number one, employee demands is really expanding across different sectors. Just to give you a data set that nationally, like CAS recent data shows very clearly that more than half of the job openings require AI-related skills are now outside of traditional IT roles. And roles asking for AI competencies command about 28% salary premium, which equates to about $18,000 per year. So these are the skills, and we're seeing the similar data trends in our own Indiana market that employers are prioritizing tech adoption. They're all feeling the pressure, and they're prioritizing upskilling and reskilling existing workforce. And number three, AI and AI adjacent skill sets are the most in demand.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, no, I was going to say that really leads to a question that I had for Rob that's set around thinking about the skills and talent gaps and considering that some of those top in demand roles include like AI, machine learning, and the engineering, the data analysts and scientists, that kind of thing. And I'm curious to know then what skills from the roles are transferable when we're considering upskilling incumbent workers, right? Because we already have a number of people that are already working. So thinking about that and considering AI and machine learning, which of those, do you believe our workforce is least prepared for, and why when we talk about upskilling, Rob?
Great. And I love this question because I get asked a lot around a company that might be going first with AI and like, hey, we need to hire a data scientist or a machine engineer or who it could be. And I talk them away from the cliff a little bit because I firmly believe the skills that every company needs in the AI era already exist within the company. In fact, I believe that those who understand that company, that organization, and how they differentiate and what their mission is are the most crucial resource right now. AI skills are easy to train and easy to learn and upskill from that basis. But if you bring someone in from the outside of your organization who is a data scientist, first, don't put them in the boardroom because I'll tell you, some of these data scientists are not the ones you'd want to be speaking business speak or to your executive side. And more often than not, they might be off brand or off focus. Now, what we find is upskilling existing employees really makes a difference. And when I think about AI literacy in the workforce, something that's striking to me is from the classes we're holding within, I'll use an economic development corporation. We close them out, and at the end of the class, we asked, where are your time savings? Where are you seeing benefit? And it was an individual 2 to 3 years out of college who has started saving 10 to 15 hours per week leveraging AI tools and has become the resident AI expert internally. So as we're looking at these new skills that exist in the workforce, in many companies, they might already be there. They're just not tapped or engaged with properly from the leadership level because they're more junior in the organization. And I think as we work through and we go through and to go off Ting's point, I think every single job role is going to need to have an AI component. I personally feel by the end of 2026, if every single job description does not have an AI skills required listed, the company might be out of sync where the rest of the market is. And I think those AI skills center around critical thinking, bringing your brand value proposition to life through whatever the technology platform tools may be. And that what the AI technology may be is third on the list behind the people and the process.
Thanks, Rob. That's helpful.
Yep.
I think that,
Thanks.
yeah, so I think that also, when we talk about those kind of things, just thinking about Oliver and what you're doing, and and bringing in some of this stuff into the space. Do you have some additional comments about what you're seeing and what you're experiencing in relation to what it is that Rob's talking about?
Yeah, and I think, part of all technology and adoption curves is that they're on a curve. And that means that, what I'm seeing, what we're seeing in sort of the VC-backed space, which is what we're from and what we do, is some pretty dramatic shift. And specifically a really dramatic shift when transitioning from AI integrating and AI native. And I think the most salient point on this is in the VC tech sector, it used to be that getting to $100 million in revenue per year in 3 to 5 years and getting to $1 billion in 5 to 7 years was considered best in class. That was good. That stopped working about a year ago. And these days, what the VCs are expecting is for the best companies to hit $100 million in revenue in 1 to 2 years and hitting 1 billion in 2 to 3 years. And so, these are the only companies doing that are the AI native companies. They're fully immersing AI into everything that they do, and they have an AI first strategy. And in order to be able to do that, what they have done is they have transformed the way they operate with data because data is the lifeblood of AI being able to really be powerful. And so I think within this skills landscape, retraining for using tools that exist in industry that are off the shelf or that can be customized, retraining existing workforce is the most efficient path. Because what becomes most important in an AI world is the knowledge of how the operations of the organizations work and the application of information, the application of the tools. Where I do see a large opportunity is as these companies go from this AI integrated to this AI native point in the adoption curve, they're going to have to retransform the way they organize and strategize around data. And what that means is that there'll be a large opportunity for new pathways, apprenticeships, and a variety of other talent pathways within the data sector. Similarly, as to with the PC revolution, there was the creation of IT and IT techs as a job class. And so I foresee that similarly to how in the last 10 years, companies have gone from becoming siloed companies, but to being an internet company, a technology company, and a media company, having to deal with technology, having to deal with things like social media. In the next iteration, as people go to this AI native kind of adoption point on the curve, they will become a data company as well. And they will need to have those skills and proficiencies.
Oliver, that is really helpful. I mean, that's really good information, and it leads to the question that I have for Sarah, understanding her expertise in apprenticeship programs. So, Sarah, could you tell us your thoughts on how AI will affect apprenticeships and non-traditional pathways? Like what twists can we expect, with AI, and what are some of the obstacles that you think that we're going to see when we think about employer buy-in, curriculum design, funding awareness, that kind of thing? How might we address those type of challenges as well?
Yeah,
Big
thanks.
question, big question.
It is a big question, but I think that Rob and Oliver really set me up for the easy answer here, which is we're going to see two main things happening in apprenticeships and other work-based learning or skills training programs. So one is taking those existing workers, your incumbent workers, and making sure that they have the skills they need to use AI in their jobs. So thinking about how do we use prompts to help us be more efficient in our day-to-day roles? How does your average manufacturing technician integrate machine learning into what they're doing, those kinds of things. But then we also have more on what Oliver was talking about, the folks who are building AI tools, who are prompt engineers, who are data scientists. So we're going to see new programs for those kinds of roles, and we're going to see existing programs have to update their curriculum to address these changes, new tools, new ways of automating and creating more efficiency. And I think the other big change that we're going to see is that the people who design and administer apprenticeships are going to have more tools at their disposal. Vicky and I cut our teeth together on writing apprenticeship standards and work process schedules, which anybody who's listening today knows that those are a bear. But AI can create them for us now. And so that I know makes a lot of people nervous. Are we, kicking ourselves out of the industry by using those tools? And I don't think we are, because we're still going to need somebody to humanize that, to make sure that industry is validating, is the curriculum aligned with what they're doing, with what they need. So that human touch is still going to be critical. But there's also like one of the things that I think is hardest for businesses when they're implementing an apprenticeship for the first time, but throughout the life of an apprenticeship, is how do you know when it's the right time to train someone on something? How do you really make structured on the job training work? And so we know that there are tools like NIMS, who formerly the National Institute of, Metalworking Skills. They developed a software, Smart Training Solutions, which is designed to tell a training manager when there's an opportunity to give an apprentice a chance to try XYZ standard or skill. And so these tools are coming out every day that are going to make it easier for people to run really dynamic apprenticeships and work-based learning programs. But like you said, Vicki, there are lots of obstacles. And I think, again, for folks who've been in the apprenticeship space, the obstacles are the same as they have always been. It's a big administrative burden. It requires a lot of partner alignment. It's a big risk and a big financial commitment. And then add on to that there are things like, how do we make sure that we have a good, excuse me, a good policy around privacy, security? How are we being transparent with our clients about when we use AI and when we don't? We also see, folks who are hesitant to adopt new technology because they don't have the skilled workers to run it. But that becomes a chicken or egg program. You kind of got to do both at the same time, right? You have to teach folks the skills while you're implementing the technology so that everybody's on board at the same time. So that's a lot to manage on top of an already complex system. But I think that I think I've already said how we address it, which is it's got to be about working hand in hand with the technology. We can't expect AI to solve our problems for us, but use it as a tool like we would use any other tool, to try to make it easier to iterate solutions and those kinds of things, and to lean on experts that are ahead of you. I'm at a conference today, and have heard 6, 7 speakers talking about, promising practices that they've launched in their communities already using AI. So even if you're brand new to it, there are people around you who have tried, and learned. And so it's all about collaboration and information sharing.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, that collaboration plays across the board with everything, right? We always know that we can get more done by breaking down the silos and collaborating with one another to come up with the best solutions to get things done. You mentioned policy. We're going to get back to that a little bit, as to what that could look like, or might look like. The other thing, when you talked about apprenticeship programs and some of the challenges that come along with that, it does make me think that there's probably a way to use AI so that then it's more difficult for employers to say, it's too much paperwork, there's too much involved in it. I bet there's a way we can use AI to make that simpler for them, so that then they can be more involved in registered apprenticeship programs. Okay, Oliver, I'm going to move on to a question for you. Okay, so the need for cross-sector AI knowledge exchanges and broadening AI adoption beyond early adopter sectors is upon us. So how can workforce development boards act as conveners or catalysts for that kind of cross-sector sharing? And then taking it another step from the employer's perspective, what evidence or metrics do employers need to be convinced that investing in AI, apprenticeships, that type of work-based learning and those kind of things is going to pay off? So from the Workforce Development Board and then from the employer's standpoint, what do you think?
Yeah, I I think Ting really framed it right when we're talking about this AI adoption curve. And it's a 3 to 5 year. It's a 3 to 5 year um, curve or a 3 to 5 year disruption to the economic system that we exist in. 3 years have gone up already. Call it we have another 3 up to 5 years from now. And I think to dig in for a moment on what makes AI disruptive is important. And I think what makes AI disruptive from a systematic perspective, from a workforce perspective, is that a significant portion of our workforce differentiates themselves in the talent and labor market based on their technical skills and their deep topical specific knowledge base. Effectively, their differentiation is the amount of time it would take someone to be trained up on these specific forms of knowledge. And career advancement so far has been about creating mechanisms to accumulate this knowledge and to capture proof of those skills in credentials. The thing that AI does is that it fundamentally democratizes technical skill and knowledge. So, this aspect that a large portion of our workforce has used to differentiate is going away. And it might not go away next year. It might take 3 to 5 years. It might take longer than that, but it's going away. And so what that means is that an entry-level employee becomes capable of producing the same output at the same technical quality as a professional of 20 years. And fundamentally, that shifts how the workforce operates and how the system operates. I think when you think about these changes, you can see them already happening in your neighborhood. If you think about your children or if you think about the young people, they're using AI to play with their friends. They're using it to express their creativity. They're using it to make homework more efficient. They're using it to build businesses. They're embracing this technology because to them, it's not a disruption, it's a leveling of the playing field. It's creating opportunity for them and where they aren't limited by the lack of technical skill or knowledge to actually create the visions that they have in their mind. And so when we think about an AI native workforce, we think of an economic system where this technology is everywhere, then the things that are now important aren't technical skill, they're not knowledge bases, they're the qualities we admire most about people and leaders in our communities. The most important skills at that point in time, and Rob touched on this when he spoke about what he's seeing in industry, the most important skills are creativity, their judgment, their ethics. They're not what you know, but what you do with what you know. And so workforce development boards in a AI native economy are critical and crucial because they're going to be what keeps the fabric of our society, of our socioeconomic system together. The economy is going to be moving into a level of dynamism that we've never seen before. Industries used to emerge and phase out over a lifetime, usually multiple people's career spans. Now we're going to see industries come in and out of existence in a decade. Jobs and professions might have a lifespan of a few years, not even a decade. And so the things that workforce development boards do best are going to be critical. They're going to need to set the vision for how to best adapt to the coming waves in this dynamic situation for their region. They're going to need to bring industry and education together to make sure that there are pathways for individuals to succeed through those turbulent times as the economy reshapes itself consistently. They're going to need to work with economic development organizations to create the right incentive structures in the region to nudge industry and people to make decisions that lead to regional prosperity and not over optimize for their own outcomes. And of course, they're going to need to develop and deploy key programs for people to help them navigate and handle the increased complexity and difficulty of a very dynamic economy. And what they will need is more money, better tools, and great people to be working in those organizations. And I think today this is being recognized. If we look at the American AI Action Plan, it explicitly calls out workforce development and apprenticeship as a critical piece of the country's AI strategy. If we look at the Department of Education, which just released a massive set of grants to fund these kinds of efforts, and even foundations are releasing large grants, all focused on AI. As an example, the Lilly Endowment just released in Indiana a $500 million grant for higher education to incorporate AI. So workforce boards are critical for us to be able to handle the coming changes in society. For employers, I think the core incentive for apprenticeships is survival. I think it's an extension of ROI, but in a world where everything is happening so quickly, then if you're not deeply integrating AI as deeply as you can, then you will struggle to survive. Not next year, but in 10 years. And because AI removes those technical and knowledge gaps, then it's about the quality of the individual. And that means the best thing that employers can do in the long term to survive is invest in individuals, not invest in roles. And the best mechanisms we have for investing and building capacity on those higher quality elements, which are judgment, creativity, ethical capacity, the best tool that we have in the tool belt to do that really well are the apprenticeship model, which is the highest ROI for building the highest capacity individuals in a holistic manner. And so when each person has a fleet of AI, has the power of CEOs or kings of old at their fingertips, then their ability to create positive outcomes or profitable outcomes for the organization or unprofitable outcomes for the organization comes down to their individual capacity. And I think survival is going to be important for these organizations, is going to be related to the apprenticeship model, as it is the most effective for developing those specific skills, those durable skills.
Thank you, Oliver. Ting, is there something that you wanted to say? I have a comment on what Oliver is saying, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to go first.
Yeah, I will absolutely double down on that. I love the way Oliver framed it, where in this AI age, access to knowledge is not the problem anymore. It's applying such knowledge to solving real world problems. And the phenomenon we're seeing today across entire work-based learning spectrum is that lack of opportunity for these learners, whether they're youth learners or adult learners, to apply the skill set, to demonstrate the knowledge base and skill set they already have. So this is where, for those of you who don't know TechPoint well, that we've been running in the internship space, college internship space for about 13 years. Guess what? The first 12 to 13 years are really successful because the problem back then has been we didn't have enough the knowledge workers with the right skills, right? We need to increase the supply. AI has completely changed that in the last few years. Now it's the demand is it's not as robust as where it used to be. But this kind of resides where the biggest opportunity for communities, the companies, even workforce boards who can rally the employers to do more catching through whether it's internship, co-ops, even just a project. Ironically, I think to Oliver's point that all these students, learners actually very well equipped to help you accelerate your AI adoption curve. You just need to be willing to come along their side and invest in such opportunity that will essentially benefit your company as well.
And just to follow up on Ting's point, and we've seen that in every other major reboot in the past. The folks who not always younger, they may just be re-entering the workforce for whatever reason, but the folks who have that exposure and have had the time to play with the latest technology, whether it's the internet, whether it's social media, whether it's operating systems or computers, they're the ones that have the base skill set the earliest, and then can have a really symbiotic relationship with organizations by bringing in their exposure to those skill sets, because there hasn't been necessarily a formalized educational pathway yet.
Yeah, it's really interesting because traditionally, when we think about workforce development boards, I mean, naturally they are conveners because they do work with all the different entities in the ecosystem, but really playing that central role and being that convener. And one of the things that I know that we've always said in the work that we've done, that when we're working with employers, trying to help them understand that workforce development boards act as a part of their HR, if they could think of it that way. And so then really making sure that those workforce development boards and those employers are working very closely together because what they're doing is so vitally important. And it really touches upon what everybody's talked about here. So whether you're trying to retrain somebody, right, and upskill, that kind of thing, it really does take a lot of collaboration and people listening to one another because this is evolving so quickly. It's like re-evolving, right? Like just when you think you got it, something else comes out that's related to AI, right? So it really is growing, and it's important for everybody to keep a pulse on that and really keep the lines of communication open in order for there to be success. I'm going to ask a question. Feel free to pop on and talk about anything else that we've said, but there's a few more questions that I have left here before we open it up for questions. So we know that measuring impact and future readiness are key considerations for this workforce reboot. So what specific key performance indicators should we track for AI digital work-based learning programs, and how often should we be doing that, knowing that things are continuously evolving?
Got it. And I'll start on that. This is one where I have a lot of passion around it. And so in my previous life as a change agent within a company, if you want to move the needle, the sooner you can show demonstrable return on investment in terms of value as defined by dollars. Now, that can manifest a few ways. It can be truly in terms of budgetary dollars or in terms of operational time saved by an employee. And chances are many companies are struggling to keep up or might have workforce challenges. And so if you can create bandwidth or hours or time within the employee space, that makes a difference. Measure time saved in 5-minute buckets. If you can save 5 minutes for one employee, you can measure that, translate that, and scale that to that 5 minutes per week adds up to a dollar amount per year. And more than likely, if you're looking in terms of low cost moves like training or workforce development, those generally are lower cost plays. And so if you can see the 5 minutes of productivity or a clear dollar return on that, well, now that training itself is self-justified from ROI standpoint.
I can go next. That's excellent point in terms of the business measuring ROI. From my lens, it's more looking at the community ecosystem, and we typically look at it through 3 different buckets. One is skills alignment. That's whether are we trained to the real market needs. That's skills alignment with job postings, skills mapping into curriculum. Really, the ultimate goal, given the pace of the change, is making our learning system a lot more market responsive. And second piece is learning outcomes. We'd be looking at the percentage of learners participating in work-based learning opportunities. Like I said, that's just that experience gap is so huge right now to enable more learners, whether adult or youth, to be able to gain that real world experience. It's just so important as part of a workforce on-ramp. And also subject to that immediately will be placement into roles, so particularly AI adjacent roles. And lastly, on the economic indicator side, we primarily looking at the AI adoption across the board in different industries and company sizes, whether such adoption have led to productivity growth, and ultimately whether such productivity growth has translated into wage growth and GDP growth.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all helpful because we need to, everything that is done, people want to know what's the ROI? What do your metrics look like? How does that relate to us being successful? What does that all really mean? And so, Sarah, you were going to say something. Did you want to come off and say something?
Yeah, I just want to double down on the last thing Ting said, which is I think the wage growth is so, so important. I think that's even in the types of apprenticeships I talked about where we're adding AI skills to an existing occupation that is already apprenticeable. Does learning AI skills make it easier for you to advance in a non-tech career? Are you earning, in addition to advanced wages, are you earning new credentials in your industry? Are you receiving promotions? Does learning AI create advancement opportunities, not just in the tech sector?
Mhm.
Yeah, that really gets to that question and thinking about, and I think all of you will probably have some response to this, but when you look at the potential of AI and how it will raise productivity and create higher value careers, how is it that we can ensure that the AI digital training programs don't become exclusive and instead advance equity and access? How can we look at that lens?
I mean, I think one of the most valuable things we can do is make the training content and the opportunities as much as possible have flexible schedules and be on demand. I think a lot of equity associated access restrictions come down from just scheduling restrictions and things of that nature. The nice thing is with this technology, what you really need is an internet connection. And it's in some ways some of the most accessible technology that we've had because you can get on ChatGPT and use it for free. You can get on ChatGPT and use it for $20, which is much more accessible to start getting exposure, or you can go on Claude or any of the other ones. So there's a lower economic barrier fundamentally. I think making sure that there aren't unnecessary scheduling or other barriers to the educational content and to the opportunities to upskill is going to be critical.
I think oh, sorry, Ting, you go first.
Thank you, Sarah. I was about to say that, as Vicky pointed out earlier, Indiana is really kind of fortunate in the sense we not only home to the nation's largest private foundation called the Lilly Endowment, but they've been very on top of recently made a announcement around $500 million investment into AI in higher ed initiative. Really presents opportunities for Indiana colleges and universities to think differently around AI adoption institutionally for faculty training, as well as student outcomes, learnings and outcomes. And even beyond that, on the inclusive and equitable access point, I mean, a lot of our large higher institutions already took steps even before, in conjunction with the Lilly Endowment announcement. I will give two brief examples. One is Indiana University is one of our largest public universities in the country. This summer launched a free Gen AI course to all of its students and faculty and staff members. Now it's to the largest alumni network in the world. So that's the approach IU took. Purdue University, another one of the other large land grant institution, public university, about 100,000 students. All the campus considered, just announced recently, AI foundational knowledge is a graduation requirement for the Purdue students. So our large institutions are really responding quickly. And we're also fortunate that Indiana, through some of in the K-12 space, with a strong leadership support, has really setting up pathways for those of students, high school students who may not go to on college in terms of different non-traditional pathways. Again, digital skills and AI skills for those paths, regardless whether you're in college or not, are very much the foundational piece, same as reading and writing and other soft skill, durable skills. So institutionally, on the education space, I'm very encouraged. It's the number of state and education and philanthropic leaderships that leaning in to making sure, again, our strategies, making sure our system is responding to market, it remains market responsive. And there's a question around the resource for curricula. I will put a resource link in there right now.
Thanks, Ting.
That's great. So I was going to add something I just heard about this morning and had not thought of before is the parts of the country where we already have difficulty accessing broadband and Wi-Fi, and the potential to deepen the gap of access in those communities. So one of the things that we've been talking about in those kind of broadband deserts is how do we make sure that training is available in person, right? So Oliver talked about scheduling and flexibility and asynchronicity, but there are parts of the world where we still need to bring the training to someone in a classroom, in a library. So making sure that we are not assuming that folks have access at home to the tools that they need to develop these skills, and continuing to lean on policymakers and funders to build that broadband infrastructure nationwide.
It also reminds me that I know that getting back to the workforce boards, and because they work with so many different entities, that it is important to remember that there are still people who live in communities where the broadband is not available, and so they don't have the internet access. But because of your workforce boards, and they're working with entities and community-based organizations that may have that access, right? Like we know that typically public libraries will have access. So making sure that close to where people live is some place for them to be able to get that access, so that then they could potentially be participating online and getting the skills that they need to be able to be active in not only the earn and learn models that can be out there for them, but just being able to make sure that they're keeping up with the technology as it is. And Tink, thank you for putting that in. Excuse me. I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to ask you all one more question, and then we're going to get to some of these questions. There's some in the chat. There are some in the Q&A. And then I want to give you all, excuse me, an opportunity to give your last remarks. So when we talk about state AI policies or regulations, Sarah talked a little tinge about this, but when we talk about related to ethical, environmental, and human impact concerns, what does that look like? What should we be considering? We know that we have to have legislation involved in these kind of things to make sure that everything is level as it should be. But what can that look like? What should it look like without compromising the ability to continue to grow the technology, because we don't want it to be stymied either.
I was a few weeks ago, I was hosting an event with several legislators across the country, kind of asking this question and really polling and trying to understand where they're thinking. And I've also done some research into what policies are happening. And so about in 2025, in the last year or so, about 1,000 different bills have been theoretically put out. Now, the majority of these were bills where folks knew they were never going to go anywhere, and it was kind of get the ball rolling kind of thing. There's probably about 100 or two that had a serious chance of going anywhere. I think one of the biggest takeaways from that room were the fact that legislators were concerned. They knew this field is moving extremely quickly. They understood that themselves and institutions were going to have a challenge keeping up. They saw a lot of opportunity, both domestically in terms of increasing prosperity, but as well from a national security and from a economic superiority perspective, more globally. Um, I think one of the things that has come out and has kind of become very important in the last year or so is making sure that consumers are protected. And some of the tragedies that have happened in the last year have been folks who are not in the best mental place talking and working with AI. And some of these AIs purporting themselves to be therapists or medical professionals or equivalent of. And those individuals then either leading to very adverse outcomes or even in some very tragic cases, suicide. And so what's come out of this is several legislations that have passed in a few different states that are about restricting and protecting the consumer from AIs that pretend to be something they aren't, in the case of a medical professional or something like that, and heavily restricting um, what they can do in the field of mental health services because the technology and the AI can, if unchecked, uh, support a person so much that then their delusions can get worse. And so this is one area where a lot of I think regulators are thinking about is how do they protect the consumer? What are the guardrails they can put in place? and how do they balance that without getting in the way of industry and without slowing down the technology revolution that's happening, as it is important both domestically but as well globally.
Those are big considerations. Thank you, Oliver. That's really helpful. I mean, you gave a really wide span of perspective as to all the things that need to be considered. I appreciate that. Ting, did you have something?
I would just reiterate, because of the fast pace of change, understand the compliance piece and enforcement piece will take time. I will continue champion that's why the education across the board, really know how to use the tool. It's just so critical, regardless of the age and the sector and the workforce you're in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, everybody has access, right? And everybody wants access for different reasons. So, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and get into the questions that we've been given, and then I'll give you all an opportunity for some last remarks. So, thank you, Ting. So, one of the things that there are some questions that were sent to us beforehand. And one was, are you aware of any current resources or tools that educators can use to incorporate AI-related skills into their curricula? And so Ting has put something there. Does anybody have anything else to add to that at this time? Also, keep in mind, and also for the listening audience, if there's additional information that we receive from the panelists afterwards, we can always get that sent to you. We have everybody's contact information. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, no, I would say there's no more powerful tool than yourself as an individual. And upskilling and just having a level of familiarity with AI skills, I think, is crucial in terms of that. But there is a wide variety of resources that are publicly available on all the channels, YouTube, wherever, that relate to that. And many of them are really high level content that's from people just like us, where we just sit and describe, here's something that goes through there. But having a level of familiarity within AI tools and using them has been there. If we think about AI literacy as a maturity model, and the first gap in that maturity model is people who are AI aware, but have not used AI in any capacity. Right now, that's 52% of US adults are AI aware, but have not used AI at all. And to move forward and up those steps in terms of AI literacy and AI sophistication, the one key difference maker is just 10 to 15 minutes of use with a generative AI tool, so a ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Grok, whatever it could be, and within doubling that with your domain expertise. So wherever you're a subject matter expert, to start having a dialogue about that with AI. And it's important to use it in an area where you have expertise, because you'll spot right away if AI gives you the 90% answer that's dangerous. It looks okay to a layperson, but you recognize here's that 10% that's missing. And just by working through with an AI tool to get it to begin to address that 10% or better prompt or asking better questions is just crucial in this. Is the resources are there. You just got to ask in a certain way or have a certain manner within interacting within it. And I'll say companion to this, I know some of the questions are coming around workforce and jobs that might be replaced, or to what degree is the workforce going to grow because of AI, but what does that look like? What are the AI jobs roles that might be created? And what I see is a existing AI role or existing role that has an AI component to it. So your AI powered client intake professional, your AI powered executive assistant, your AI powered, et cetera, where it's someone who's very fluent in the tools, but they know the brand, the personalities, the context of the situation, and are able to make change or affect a result very quickly. And then to piggyback on a few comments that have come through this topic from Oliver and Ting and others, is the speed has changed, not future tense, current tense. The speed has already changed. And I notice we might have a lot of Midwest representation in this. I think there is a trait of Midwesterners, which I would call wait and see. So within Ohio and our region, we have a lot of wait and see-ism, which is frankly a strength. We don't chase hype. We tend to see, what goes through, and then from a place of conscious thought, we make a decision. Well, because the speed of cycles have moved for any entity that is within the Midwest and it is just a wait and see situation, or going into 26 just to kind of see how AI unfolds, the reality is they're already being lapped by others who are on the coast who are moving forward. And instead of having a 1 year decision making cycle, they might be on a 3 month cycle on the other side. So if you're waiting and seeing, or you know of individuals who are in a wait and see, all they're waiting for is to see a case study from their competition or from another region or from another side, because right now waiting is the worst thing anyone can be doing. The time for waiting is over.
Well,
Thanks, Rob.
one
Yeah.
thing, one more resource to add, and I do think there really is no replacement for getting direct exposure and trying to use these tools, like as Rob mentioned, and just I think Ting as well. There's just no replacement for that. If one of my favorite tools for finding resources generally, that is an AI tool, so you might be able to do a 2 for 1 there, is Perplexity. And the specific thing I like about Perplexity is that it does a little bit of summarization, but it will give you the links. It will give you the references. And so I use it mostly for as a really advanced Google search. And then and then I just click through all the links, and then I look through all the links, and I kind of ignore what it tells me that's not the links. Um, and so that's just one resource that I would say is a good gateway resource, because you get to use AI and get a feel for it while also getting a lot of resources on AI or what have you.
I'm going to hone in on something that's in the second question here that's in the chat. It says AI literacy versus soft skills like adaptability and critical thinking. But Rob, you specifically linked the two, critical skills and AI literacy. And I'm just wondering, I think it's interesting that when we talk about things, sometimes we want to say versus, but it doesn't have to be versus, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I'll tell you the foundational reason why I'm saying some of the things I'm saying is, when it comes time to implementing AI, whatever it is, in your organization, your community, your region, you're going to have a need a team that's going to be following a project or a plan. And AI centric teams operate differently. They need to, because of the nature of AI. And a common pitfall that many fall into is they treat it like a standard technology product, change product. It's different. The ways that it's different are this. One, you need to have individuals who have deep level domain expertise in the area of change that's happening. If you don't have that on the team's not going to have anyone who can sniff out if there's something that's just AI slop that actually is going to cause problems down the road. And then the second is a strong network of experts who, if a situation or there is just a certain need that's highlighted by this change comes in, that there's, I'm going to date myself, a deep Rolodex of people you can contact or bring in to just coach or just have a quick conversation on wherever that is. It can't happen in isolation. And then the other process that's different is, I would say, there's a deprioritization on technical skills and a higher prioritization on discovery, really good, someone who can be really good at asking questions on the why or the missions around various different organizations, and then can start to connect the dots of the new world of what's possible, where things that haven't happened before, we're starting to lay the groundwork. If you don't do that, you might just be paving the cow path that already exists, that goes a different way, but that doesn't quite compute in the AI era. And so you need to have a different collection of skills, perspective, and resources in these teams.
Thank
And
you.
and I would just add one more, the importance of networking. And I want to just commend anyone who's on this call. And I know there's a lot of AI topics and seminars out there. Keep going to them, keep getting to them, keep talking in those meetings, because in the hallways of all those AI conferences is where I'm seeing the future revenue streams being formed and those ideas happening. They're happening. You need to get in the room or virtually into the webinar. So
Thank
keep
you.
doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
So there were some other questions that are in the chat that were in the Q&A that TPMA could specifically answer. They were asking like panelists contact information and that kind of thing. But there is one in here that I don't know if we have a quick answer to it. I know that we have people on our staff who can probably help with this, but some of you might know. The question is there research on how many new jobs will enter the market that you would be able to direct us towards, or that you have statistics that you could share today? Does anybody have any of that info?
I don't. We're actually I think that's almost like $1 billion question, where the labor market will move towards. we are embarking on trying to quantify that in a way, knowing that data is never as good as you would like it to be. But I will say, if anyone look back into the prior tech adoption curve, including dating all the way back to the Industrial Revolution, the massive amount of folks moved from farming into urban factories and suburbs. Each adoption curve, well, this history would show that each adoption curve ultimately created both productivity growth, wage growth, as well as long-term net new jobs. So the I will conclude by saying, and I think most of the folks on this call would agree that people who tend to get left behind are the ones who don't or not necessarily equipped with the right AI skills. So the fear factor is certainly out there. That's more the reason we are going to be having to accelerate our collective learning here.
Thanks, Ching. Well, we're to the end of this, so let's give everybody just a minute to give any last thoughts as we close up the webinar. Oliver, you want to start?
I think just as we've been discussing, there is a progression, right? And what I mean by that is AI skills are an evolution of internet and web skills, which are an evolution of digital and PC skills. And it's kind of foundational, built upon each other. And so I think one of the final thoughts is, as interesting as AI is and as transformative as it is, it itself will be a foundation for then a new technology and a new set of skills. And so I think the criticality of this technology and developing both for ourselves as people in the world who are working in workforce and working with these things, but as well for the workforce itself. The criticality of it is not just for this wave, but for the waves that come after it. Because the people who are most left behind are those who didn't pick up the internet skills for this wave. And the people who are most left behind are those who didn't end up, for whatever reason, having the computer skills from before. And again, these are smaller and smaller populations with each continuation, but it keeps stacking up. And if you don't know the previous foundation, you will struggle, really struggle with the next one.
Thanks, Oliver. That's very important. Rob?
Thanks. And, I would say, if I have a parting thought for anyone, something you can do this moment, talk to your team about AI, talk to your company about AI. A recent statistic is those who are learning AI skills also are bringing their own tools to the workplace because their workplace does not offer them the AI tools that they have at home. Think about that. That means innovation is happening outside the view of leadership, outside the view of your organization's mission and values, but you have the talent right there. Truly, it's making it a safe environment where employees and leaders can talk about AI and just have that dialogue. The other statistic that is very clearly showing is if leaders are asked around AI, there's greater optimism, greater vision, because that's what they do. They see more in the future by their nature. If you talk to knowledge workers, there's greater anxiety, there's greater fear, there's greater concern. So for a company that is not talking to its employees around AI, or a leader not talking to it, the narrative is happening. Employees already have a view on it that's being controlled outside the organization. So it starts as simply as just talking to your employees and talking to your staff, or if you find you're that employee, talking to your leadership and letting them know you have these skills and you'd like to do something.
Thanks, Rob. It's great. Makes a lot of sense. Ting?
One of the question here is the AI, how would AI change perspectives with the 4-year degree? I won't comment on that. I will let the TPMA experts follow up on that later. But I will say that on the education space, and all of us work with education partners one way or the other, K-12 all the way through higher ed or even community colleges, because the change in the labor marketplace, a lot of it's due to the AI adoption practices. We're in a moment in time where all of our education partners are very responsive to what industry are looking for. So knowing that driving change in the education sector is hard, knowing that we're in this moment in time to drive some meaningful, encourage some innovative thinking, knowing that all our education partners are very incentivized to making sure their learners getting placed into the right workforce. there's here a huge opportunity to drive curriculum change, system thinking change. Again, like I said, the ultimate goal is to make our education system a lot more responsive to market needs.
Thank you, Ting. Appreciate it. And Sarah.
Well, gosh, I don't know how I could give the last word after those three comments. And I know we're already at 2 o'clock also. So I'll just say, I think Ting, I'm glad you called out that question about the value of 4-year degrees, because I think there's a whole conversation around skills-based hiring, how we use AI to think about resumes and job descriptions and interviews that we didn't even touch on today. So I think stay tuned, because TPMA may just be rolling out a second in our AI webinar series real soon, where we can dig into those kinds of questions because we didn't have time to.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, panelists. We really appreciate your time and your expertise. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. We hope that you'll reach out if we can be of any assistance as you navigate through the many facets of AI. Take care.